Ceasar, the car's cool, but you know, you're much cool. All right, welcome to Break Street. Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. We're in the future. You were doing future stuff. We're gonna cut right now. Cut, edit.
Up the program. Mexican. How you doing? Great.
Let's rock, y'all. This is Los Angeles.
Effing up the program.
Boom, back. Right, you were doing future stuff before the future, so amazing, right? It's just unbelievable. Say welcome to Break Street, where all the b-boys, b-girls, hip-hoppers go. You're a legend, but for people who might not know you, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, first and foremost, man, thank you, Friction. Thank you for welcoming me here. Like BBoy Friction said right here, my name is BBoy Lil Ceasar from a crew called the Air Force Crew. And also, a lot of people know me because of the Radiotron events that I started, back in 1993. So I've just been in the game for over about 40 years or so, somewhere around there. Just happy and blessed. I'm just blessed, man. I'm happy that I'm actually here, healthy and just highly favored, man.
And truly healthy. You've always been about health. You kind of always told us to make sure we're drinking water, make sure we're being healthy. Yourself, Flow One, kind of leading us to go in the right direction. Helped a lot of us kind of stay healthier into our old age, where we could have went the other direction. We really appreciate it. So tell us, when did you start breaking? What year was it?
Wow, Friction. When did I start breaking? Well, I think it all started back in 1982. Out here in the West Coast, 1982. Breaking came around, and it's something that's beautiful art form, this beautiful dance that I fell in love with. And I was like, wow, one could actually spin on our head, in our hand, and our backs. So I was like, we were intrigued by that. So I was like, man, I need to learn that. So here we are 40 years later, man.
So who was the first b-boy or b-girl that you saw do these amazing moves?
Amazing moves back then was a handspin, a windmill, even a head spin. Was it? Right? So who was the person? I would have to say my neighbor. He goes by the name of Jose Alanis, Captain Rock, who later became a DJ for Captain Rock. Captain Rock, right? But right around the corner from my house, about 7 blocks, there's Radiotron. This is where I went to this youth center and I got to meet all the dopest b-boys back then. That's where I got to meet Kid Tough, BBoy Orko, Little Lewis. I got to meet all the guys from the Air Force crew. And Kid Tough was one of the guys who inspired me, man. Orko, I mean, shout out to Orko, man, because Orko's one amazing b-boy, amazing head spinner as well. And then you have Osrock as well back then. So these guys, some of the guys that really inspire me. Baby Huey, another guy that inspired me, man. And but yeah, man, it's there's another guy whose name is Amir Moja. He's from the Middle East. He's one of the first guys who I started seeing do windmills. So I mean, imagine the first time ever. Right? I know that we're in 2022.
People don't understand, like, there wasn't cameras before. There was no. Just record it and then be like, hey, I'm going to send you this video.
Exactly.
It was all word of mouth.
Exactly.
You weren't there.
Exactly, Friction. There was no cameras. There was no YouTube. There was no social media, man. So we're very, very fortunate that we had the dance. And here we are, man, 40 years later.
Wow, that's amazing. What days was the Radiotron? Was it like a weekend thing? Was it an everyday thing? For most people know Radiotron, they might remember the movie Breaking, but what they don't realize that it was a social club or just like a teen center, right, by Carmelo, right? Carmelo was the one doing it. So explain to us what it was. It was like a rec center, and it was like a weekly thing, a daily thing. How was it?
Yeah, so basically Radiotron, it was run by Carmelo Alvarez, and Radiotron was a youth center. It was a youth center. And it was open every day. It was like 50 cents to get in, to come and practice. 50 cents, right? This is like $5. Something like that, right? So Radiotron, man, this was a place where all the dancers we used to go. It was the mecca of the West Coast.
Right.
I mean, if you wanted to test your skills, you had to come to Radiotron. If you wanted to put yourself to the test and your crew, you needed to come to the Radiotron. Not just in b-boying, but in all the elements of the culture. You know what I'm saying? So basically that's what it was, man. It was the youth center, but later on, like you say, it was in a movie Breaking and also Electric Boogaloo. This was a place where battles happened almost every day, or at least in the weekends. So it was actually a spot that you needed to test your skills. You needed to come to Radiotron.
Would you say a majority it was mostly black and Latino, or were there? It was like pretty much a mix of everybody in LA.
Well, it's basically, I would say a lot of both the blacks and the Latinos, you know, and you had a little bit of whites, a little bit of the Filipinos, so a little bit of the Asians, but mainly the majority, I think it was basically black and Latino. Because remember, it was a lot of Central American that immigrated out here to the West Coast. So a lot of us, we came to that Mecca, MacArthur Park area.
So what happened to it? Radiotron. So Radiotron, how did it end? Like what happened? Why did it stop?
But as News 13's Miriam Hernandez reports, the plot has now taken a turn for the worse.
Breaking was never choreographed, it just happened. The Youth Break Center grew the same way. No government funds, no private donations, but now they face eviction. The problem is progress. The owner of this block wants to put office buildings in a shopping center next door, and in order to do that, he needs parking space. And he plans to put that right where the Youth Break Center now stands. The city's also closed down the weekend dances that paid the rent because of code violations.
See, I have a choice. Either I let them go out there in the street and take their chances, or I take my chances and allow them to be in here.
Next Wednesday, they march to City Hall to ask the mayor for a hand. From MacArthur Park, Miriam Hernandez, News 13.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The Youth Break Center, also known as Radiotron, is about to lose its clubhouse. And these youngsters are trying to get the attention of the city council with some very attention-getting performances. The center in the MacArthur Park area will soon be giving way to development, and Carmelo Alvarez is looking for help. Today's City Hall performers included Handyman, a polio victim when he was an infant. Handyman, all right! None of the city council members came out to listen to the protesters or to offer them encouragement, but they had the most unusual protest we've ever seen. At City Hall, Jim Wilson.
Radiotron ended in 1985, towards like 80, 85, and early into 86. Basically, the Carmelo used, what they did was, if you see the movie Electric Boogaloo, it's all about us, basically. Whether actually, yes, that's it. Basically, that they stole the idea. So it was about, you know, the building itself, it needed renovation, and we needed to actually raise money. And unfortunately, there was no one that stepped into the plate to bring enough money to come and renovate the building because it was torn up, basically. So there was no money. Exactly. It was a red flag by the city. So there was no money. Then they tore it down. They broke it down. So by that time, we all went back to the streets. We had no more Radiotron. This has happened like early '86.
So basically the city. So that's why we need to buy a lot of real estate, guys. Buy a bunch of real estate so that can never happen again. And we own the buildings. Okay, so you got inspired by Radiotron. When did you start seeing the breaking was kind of like the future when it died out? So tell us about your perspective from when it died out to when it started coming back and you brought back the Radiotron event and all those different things.
Well, Friction, I would say like for me, I remember the 1994 Olympics. You know, which was, we saw like the future. We were like, oh my God, it's gonna be in every Olympic, right? So we're exactly 88, right? So it's going. But by 85, late 85, Radiotron got shut down. The music industry started to shift. A whole new movement started to be born. This is when gangster rap was coming. And then also some of the parents were were basically being told by the doctors to stop breaking because a lot of the kids were getting injured. Breaking was banned in all schools. You couldn't break in recreational parks. There was a lot of funding that were cut.
It died out, or like
this is right. That's like right during at the highest peak. At the highest peak, 80. I'm talking about the late 85. Late 85. That's the highest peak of breaking. All the movies are out, right? So when music came in. And then people started downplaying and saying, oh, that's too old, right? So this whole new movement of music came in, And then all those B-boy crews, right? All the popping crews, all the groups that went back to gangbanging.
Wow. No, yeah.
Now exactly now the drugs, the gangs, the guns came into the city, man, and it got ugly from '86 to about 1992. I think it was like the darkness of the culture, because so many killing happened within those particular years. Now for me, I started like in 1989. Breaking was starting to actually, a few people started to break. There was a new movement that was born called freestyling, right?
Fellas, can we still do it?
And there were a lot of them. They were all freestyling, right? And then, right, exactly. So a lot of them, there was a new generation. They started going down to the floor, but they couldn't. Exactly. There you go. What do you know about Scheme Team, bro? Kalani and all them guys, bro. You know. So anyway, so by that time in '89, I got inspired to see some of the guys like B-Boy Robbie, Chuco, and Animation. Some of them they continue carrying the flag. And then I came into the picture again, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? We're back, but not really, right? So it was only like
Energy, different style.
exactly. So by 1990, 91, the B-Boy, it was called the hip hop shop when Hex used to have it on Melrose. And basically, this is another mecca place where a lot of the B-Boys would meet. And a lot of the Europeans, it's called the hip hop shop.
The hip hop shop, yeah.
And a lot of the Europeans would go there because it was the only place where people would come out at a real cool place called in Melrose. So that's where I started breaking. Next thing you know, all the B-Boys were coming from everywhere. Rocksteady was coming from New York. And it was like another mecca place. And then we all started getting inspired. This is by 1991, 92. I was already training. Willpower, myself and I, we started training. We started training. By 1993, I got the opportunity to go to Europe. When I got to Europe, to my surprise, blew away because everybody was doing it. And they were doing it on a real high scale.
What is going on?
I felt like I was back all in the 80s once again.